Hi, so I've called this workshop Coordination. I wanted to attend the, there's a part of learning to dance or practicing dance where we focus on our different body parts and we start to gain understanding about how they can work with each other. And of course, coordination is sort of like one of those catch-all terms which sort of is emblematic of what we think of when we think of dance, sort of a well-coordinated body or person sort of thing. But what does that mean? What does coordination mean? Is it some sort of like the ability to organize and harmonize multiple elements of motion? Like this sort of very formulaic, but how do we understand that? Should they work smoothly and effectively? And is it like a physical skill around timing, awareness, and the relationship between different movements? So maybe it's all, right? Maybe it's every part of those. So let's break it down and have a little bit of a exploration together. So to start, I'd like you to choose a body part or two body parts and see if you are able to move those elements in an order or in a rhythm. So looking at timing and sequencing, can you sort of create a rhythm or a pattern between those two body parts, or choose two other body parts and sort of coordinate them? And I mean, maybe you consider it just one body part. It depends on how you define a body part, but it's sort of finding little aspects of ourselves to sort of shift from one quality of movement to another, and feel that, so that it feels connected rather than disjointed, if that makes sense. So let's have a play with that, playing with different sequences and timings with different body parts. We can move around the body, have an exploration around this theme, and just see what comes up when you focus on coordinating in time, in sequences, a body part or different body parts. Okay, great. So did you find yourself needing to do that with or without music? I think that is a very interesting question if we're thinking about coordinating with timing and sequences. For me, I found that I wanted to work without music so I could find my own sort of understanding of coordination through timing and sequences, or rather than having a sort of objective outside of the sequence and timing that I was creating, its own timing in the music that I have to sort of respond to. And there's a sense also of gaining control maybe around or maintaining control around these coordinations, this notion of coordination. But let's continue with this focus on coordination. But this time, I'd like to invite sort of multiple element awareness. So sort of noticing and managing several movement qualities or impulses at once. For example, moving simultaneously, adjusting the speed, intensity, and flow. So have an exploration with or without music. Maybe try both to see how it affects your coordination. And see if you can manage or maybe a better word is to stay in control of, or keep note of, different impulses and qualities all at once. Yeah, so that can be intensity, a different flow or dynamic in different body parts, or a speed, and allow that sort of movement exploration to carry you wherever. You don't need to keep it to one body part, although you can stay with the neck and head maybe, or the hands, the feet, the arms, or the shoulders, however you like, but focusing now on managing and noticing several movement qualities or impulses at once. Okay, pause here and come back when you've had a play. Okay, great. Hopefully that increased another sense of awareness around what we're dealing with when we talk about coordination. I have to think about when we're doing these sort of explorations, when there is little to no clear, where there's a lot of spontaneity, let's say. How do we maintain a sense of coordination, a sense of control around the things? So knowing whether or not we're going to trip or slip or feel out of control, by sort of establishing movements and movement patterns and qualities that we can sort of manage, perhaps speeds and intensities of a flow and direction that can live within our understanding or our ability, perhaps, and our control. Maybe that's where coordination sort of resides a little bit for us as well. But keep exploring and keep finding it for yourself. This time, I'd like you to sort of play with the independence and the interactions that exists within these movements. So basically understanding how one movement affects or depends on another. So how they connect, how they relate, and especially after playing with those multiple qualities and impulses. So perhaps using different tensions and intensities and flows and speeds, how do they react and affect and maybe support and produce, perhaps, depend on each other to sort of be what they are. So, for example, you could even ask how your movement reacts to space, to gravity, to breath, or even imagined understandings of what you're doing. So have a go now looking at the interaction or the independence of the different movements and how they affect and depend on each other, and how that plays into our understanding of coordination. So pause here and go and have a small dance. Okay, great. Hopefully that was interesting. For me, it opened up a sense of like where in my thinking, almost in my attention around these organized ideas of the movements I'm doing, do they fall outside of what I consider a sort of coordinated, organized order of movement? And maybe one of the tricks, perhaps, of becoming more coordinated is to try to understand how I would understand them as a part of that organization? How do I understand them as a part of that order, so to speak? And maybe we can take that into the next exercise, where I'd like you to coordinate yourself with your environment. Maybe there are other people you're able to dance with, or maybe there is other things, the landscape, the room, the furniture, but allow external stimuli to sort of be a part of that dance. You can match with the music or your partner or a group dynamic, and exactly in relationship to coordination, what does it mean to contrast maybe? What does it mean to include opposition and counterpoint as a part of your idea of coordination? How do you coordinate that? How do you understand that as coordinated? What do you need to do to allow that to happen? So coordinating ourselves with the world around us, with our environment, other people, and external stimuli. So go away, play some music, don't play some music, coordinate with the world around you. Okay, great. I managed to coordinate with the chair, with drinking a glass of water. It was very interesting, and also to see exactly where they shift and they break and change, and how it coordinates with my own style of dancing, or my own sense or understanding of my own dance, and it challenges it as well by trying to relate to how it's organizing and co-organizing with everything else around me and in the environment. I really feel like this is something to go back to repeat. Okay, so finally, as I've introduced this idea of our dance, I'd like to see or to play with fluidity and adaptability. So how do we coordinate smoothly? How did we let the conditions smoothly change? And perhaps within there is a little bit of the question of how do those patterns arise, right? In our dancing, maybe through our habits, the practice that has sort of built itself into our motor neuron system. How does that adapt and shift? How do those patterns feel coordinated and relevant? How do they feel there, so to speak, a part of our understanding, our recognition? So this time, playing with fluidity and adaptability, for example, altering your movement if the imagined material shifts from, say, water to air, or if the rhythm changes, how do you allow a smooth adaptation between those things? There's a lot to think about, I'm sure. Have a go and see what comes up in your dance, for your dance. Okay, fantastic. I feel like there's a question of how can I coordinate almost my transitions? How can I coordinate the movement between one activity and the other? What needs to happen to those codes of organization for that to feel coordinated in me? It's very similar a little bit to the very first workshop on how do I feel my felt sense of dance, but perhaps that because it involves a sense of like value and coordination. I find it very playful, and there's something of I could spend hours just on one of these attentions or prompts that we've had today in this workshop. And in a way, that's the beauty, hopefully, of this type of way of working, of having an audio recording which you can record and pause at any time, is that you can really just continue for as long as you wish. That's the sort of, then from there, you can learn and find as much as you need and wish, I suppose. At least that's how it feels for me. But thank you for today. Take a moment to reflect. Write down some brief descriptions maybe of what coordination could be. I still have the question for myself, so I have no answers. Is it the art of connecting timing and the balancing of multiple aspects of movements? Is it some sort of value system? It's a very playful space to consider, even though it's maybe one of the more restricted understanding or value spaces around that. Really interesting. Thank you, and see you again soon. Hi, thanks for listening. If you can support the podcast, please go to paypal.me/dancepeter. I'm just looking for a little bit of funding to help support the cost of the hosting. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you so much.